This installation video is for the 1998 through 2007 Land Cruiser and 1998 through 2002 LX470. If you have a 2003 through 2007 LX, please use the GX470 instructions instead. Gather tools for the installation. You will need an 8mm socket or a Phillips driver to remove the ashtray, a 2mm Allen wrench to disassemble and reassemble the cubby, and a 1.5mm Allen wrench to install the charger. I also recommend using a small dish to hold screws while you work. First, remove the lower center finish panel from the dashboard. Use an 8mm socket or a Phillips driver to remove the 3 ashtray mounting screws. Save these screws, you're going to reuse them to mount the phone cubby with. Pull the ashtray mounting bracket off the trim panel. You may need to pry a bit to get it to release from the 2 plastic posts it is hanging from if it's stuck in place after removing the screws. Set the trim panel aside and grab your 2mm Allen wrench. I'm using a power driver for this video, but an Allen key or T-handle will work just fine. Use your 2mm Allen wrench to remove the 4 screws on the bottom rear of the cubby assembly. Take care not to lose them. I do recommend using a magnetic tray or small dish to hold the screws as you remove them. Use the 2mm Allen wrench to remove the 2 screws from the front of the cubby. Slide the 2 cubby halves apart. You may need to apply thumb pressure to the bottom to get it to slide forward. Do not pull too hard on the upper lip of the top half. Only apply force to the bottom section if needed if they are not sliding apart. Use the 1.5mm Allen wrench to loosen the grub screw that holds the green shipping spacer in place. You should only have to back it out a couple of turns. Remove the green shipping spacer and set it aside. It is no longer needed. Thread the end of your charging cable through the rectangular slot in the bottom of the cubby. If you have a USB A to C adapter on the cable, be sure to remove it before this step. Use both thumbs to press the puck into the pocket. I recommend first pressing down on the side opposite the cable to ease the puck in before beginning to press harder. After it is mostly in the pocket, press firmly all the way around until it is completely seated. It should be a very snug fit. Use the 1.5mm Allen wrench to tighten the grub screw until you feel resistance as the internal clamping block makes contact with the puck. Check the secureness of fit by pressing upwards on the puck through the circular hole in the bottom of the cubby. Continue to gently tighten the grub screw and check fit until no movement is felt. Now, use the 3 screws you originally removed from the ashtray mount to attach the top half of the cubby to the trim panel. Tighten the screws until they are snug, but don't overdo it, especially if you're using an 8mm wrench to tighten them. It might be a good idea to use a Phillips driver instead of the socket if you're afraid of over-torquing. Check the fit of the top cubby half on the mounting posts to ensure everything is squared up and that the 2 threaded brass inserts on the front are not obstructed by the edges of the trim panel. It's okay to see a gap on the bottom section where the cubby meets the trim panel, but the upper front sections with the brass inserts should be flush. Now slide the lower half of the cubby into the top half through the front of the trim panel. Tuck the charging cable into the grooves on the bottom of the cubby as you insert it into the trim panel. If you are using a charger behind your dash, just run the cable straight back. If you are going to be using a front dash charger port, you will need to loop the cable back in a U shape. Hold the cable in the U shape as you slide it into the trim panel. The 4 brass inserts on the bottom should be clearly visible through the chamfered holes. If they are not, check again to make sure the top half is sitting squarely on the trim panel mount. Hand place the 4 short screws back into the chamfered holes on the bottom of the cubby. Use the 2mm Allen wrench to install the 4 screws in the bottom. Tighten them about 1.5 turns, but do not torque them down yet. Use the 2mm Allen wrench to install the 2 longer screws in the front. You might need to gently push on one side or the other of the plastic posts to get the holes to line up. Tighten the 2 screws on the front until they are snug, but do not over-tighten them. Now finish tightening the 4 screws on the bottom, tightening until snug but not over-tightening. Then double check the tightness of the 2 front screws to make sure that they're tight but not over tight. And then reinstall the trim panel assembly into your dash.